Hello, everyone. It is Michelle, the Childcare Entrepreneur. So, this article comes from Yahoo News, and I thought this was very interesting because this is a question that has come up in conversation in the childcare community, whether it's family childcare, whether it's childcare centers, and that is universal pre-K. Um, I remember in my own district when the school decided that they were going to fund a program for its preschool children for ages 3 and 4. And to my surprise, I did not lose um, that many children. I think I only lost one. Um, and I walked that client through the the preschool classroom and everything as they were navigating the ins and outs, the positives, the negatives, and finally it became an effective way of educating this child. But um, like I said, I was very involved in this with this child from day one. So universal pre-K, like I said, has been a huge discussion, and we want to know as childcare providers where we fit in to universal pre-K. Are we going to be a part of it? Are we going to get a part of that money? And so there are a lot of things that come out in this article, which is very, very good in reference to that. And I just happened to find an article that talks specifically about family childcare, whereas the conversation has been more with the centers. So this article, experts urge caution when including family childcare in universal pre-K. Okay, so when a little girl in Chris Nelson's Family Childcare Center painted a picture of a purple cow, a boy in the program was quick to correct her. Cows, he said, could only be black and white. So the North Troy, Vermont provider began organizing cow-related field trips so the preschoolers could reach their own conclusions. I love this about family childcare. Over the next year, they visited dairy farms, brushed Highland cattle's long hair, and branched off to learn about elk, deer, and llamas. They read stories about cows, counted, counted cows, and compared different breeds. That's the kind of child-led learning experience that Nelson plans to continue this fall when she participates for the first time in Vermont's Universal Pre-Kindergarten program. We base our curriculum on children's interests, said Nelson, who has 26 years of experience in the field and even has former students who enroll their own children in her program. We know the kids' learning style. We have a history with them. And that is very, very important in family childcare and what parents love about this type of environment. Allowing providers such as Nelson to participate in a public-funded pre-K system could speed up the timeline for providing universal access to 3 and 4-year-olds, along with tuition-free community college. The other half of President Joe Biden's plan to provide 4 more years of free public education. But a new report from the National Institute for Early Education Research in Homegrown, an organization working to improve home-based child care, suggests it's not that simple. Including family child care in pre-K initiatives could satisfy parents who prefer their home-like environment and increase the supply of preschool programs in communities with limited supply, the author said. However, they caution policymakers against expecting in-home providers to immediately meet the same standards and regulations as pre-K centers. As Congress begins writing a 3.5 trillion plan that is expected to include $200 billion for early childhood education, the reporter recommends lawmakers take a gradual approach that considers the perspectives of providers and parents. It's really tricky for home-based providers. They lose out when they don't get included in public pre-K programs, said Natalie Renew, Homegrown's director. But the pre-K systems that are primarily oriented towards schools and centers also disadvantage the providers and the families they serve, she added. The primary downside, she said, is that if more home-based providers seek state funds to serve just preschoolers, that could mean less space for infants and toddlers, space that is already in short supply. Working parents are more likely to choose family childcare over centers for babies and toddlers, surveys show. According to a summary of Biden's American Families Plan, families would be able to choose the settings that work best for them. Parents often prefer family childcare because it offers a more personalized environment, allows them to keep siblings in the same program, and can offer flexible hours that centers can't accommodate. Including home-based providers in state pre-K also could further diversify the workforce, allowing parents to find caregivers that reflect their culture and speak their language. Family childcare providers have to meet requirements to be licensed, but many state pre-K regulations regarding facility space, hours of instruction, and education requirements for teachers don't easily translate to someone who cares for children in their living room. State funding could be a predictable source of income for providers, but it also means more people coming into your home to monitor compliance, Renew said. New Jersey, for one, requires pre-K classrooms to be 950 square feet. Would homes need dedicated space for the pre-K program with minimum square footage per child equivalent to the classroom requirement? The author asked. States often require lead pre-K teachers to have a 2 or 4 year degree and special training in child development. Currently, almost 50% of home-based childcare, home-based providers have no college education, according to the report. Educational requirements could increase the quality of family childcare, but Renew said there's a mismatch between most college-level early childhood programs and the realities of family childcare, especially around implementing a pre-K curriculum for 3 and 4-year-olds, while still attending to the needs of babies and toddlers. It doesn't work if we turn every family childcare provider into a teeny tiny center, she said. Lynette Dumas, Executive Director of the National Association for Family Childcare, said she's encouraged by the direction the administration is taking, but wants funding for an on-ramp to help providers earn degrees and make other modifications to their programs. Finally, Renew added, there's a false assumption that home-based childcare is cheaper. The report argues that including such providers on a large scale could end up costing more. In the Seattle preschool program, for example, a coach or consultant visiting a center would provide training for 2 to 4 teachers at once and indirectly impact up to 40 kids, said Monica Lang-Aguirre, who leads the program at the Seattle Department of Education and Early Learning. With family childcare, that same coach might be working with one provider who serves maybe 2 or 3 children. The coach is still receiving the same pay and likely has added travel expenses to reach at-home providers. Renew said, there's not yet enough research on whether children benefit from home-based pre-K programs in the same way they do in centers. San Francisco has the most experience, with at-home providers representing 18% of the city's pre-K sites. In Seattle's program, funded by a local tax levy, 25 at-home providers, about 2% of the overall number, are expected to participate this fall. Lang-Aguirre said the department waived the bachelor's degree requirement because it wasn't realistic for home-based providers. The majority are immigrants and speak languages other than English. They serve families that are often reluctant to use out-of-home care and are trying to figure out if it's a good idea to let their children go to preschool. Lang-Aguirre said, we see it as a really important model and an important way to make preschool accessible for all families. All right, so this article brings out a couple of things that are really important for family childcare providers to take away. And one of which is education. And a lot of times, family childcare providers do not have those advanced degrees, bachelor's, master's, and sometimes associate's degrees that are kind of important part in the playing field in education and as teachers. And so I think as an AFCC executive director said, that it would be nice if the plan um, would include providing that funding for childcare providers or family childcare providers to receive that funding. I know for sure they are open and willing to do so. And so that would be a great addition um, to add to a family childcare provider. And also, what came out in the article, effectively teaching children in pre-K. When I started my family childcare business, that was all that I did was pre-K. And I have wonderful, wonderful pictures of just this type of hands-on learning that the article describes, um, in my child care. Mine is set up like a little small school-like setting. And so a lot of what we did, we didn't just sit at a table and use worksheets or anything like that. We actually got out and touched, explored, questioned, and everything, which is one of the things that if you ask experts, the children need to feel and touch and see and look and experience um, a lot of their learning, which is what family childcare is about and can really be successful in doing so for pre-K children. Also, space is another big thing. And space is something that we as family childcare providers, we don't have a whole lot of space depending on where where you care for your children. It could be a designated area. Some people redo their entire home, and that's great. So that would be a question as well. Undermining what FCC provide to infants and toddlers. FCCs are really, really important in the infant toddler world. And because we provide that home away from home, it's a smaller environment and parents love it. I mean, the children can grow, they stay with us for years. But that could be a beginning to starting that pre-K education because they're so familiar with us, because they're familiar with the environment. And one of the things that came out in the article was the children are very familiar with us and we are very familiar with them. So that's something to keep in mind. Um, and also regulation. Regulation, knowing what to do with us, family childcare regulation, I think through Grow New Jersey and a lot of the other organizations that are really taking a look at us, regulation is still a question. Do we regulate family childcare like we do centers? Now with universal pre-K, those regulations will have to be a little bit different. And different doesn't necessarily mean bad. It just means different. And so we have to look at each provider on an individual basis, but also look at providers according to, maybe new state regulations, and have sort of a subset of things that we check off, um, which is doable. And so we'll have to see based on some of these pilot programs that are beginning with universal preschool, how we as family childcare providers fit into that. And then lastly, what I think is really, really important and was brought out in the article, allowing parents to choose what is best or what they prefer. With a lot of family childcare providers, parents prefer a smaller environment and they don't mind if a child does work at a dining room table or whether, as mine is set up like a little small school, or if it's in the backyard, as long as the children are safe, they're secure, they're happy, and they're learning. And the specifics of that are not so difficult when it comes to parents and families choosing family childcare. So I think this was a pretty good article. It brought out a lot of issues that come up a lot in relation to universal pre-K and family childcare, but childcare in general. So we'll see. Keeping an eye on some of these pilot programs and how they all work. So I'll be interested to hear what you all think. Let me know in the comments and make sure you are subscribing, you're liking these videos. Like I said, I'm really excited to start this um, new these new videos about the different things coming up in the news so that they can be discussed on a regular basis. So until the next video, I'll talk to you soon.